And what does my opponent do? Bishop to f4, the London? I mean, it's a really nice city, but it is not my favorite opening. So here I am playing on my world-famous Beat FunMasterMike show. Well, it's world-famous in my own mind. My opponent plays d4, I play g6, getting ready for a big fight. And what does my opponent do? Bishop to f4, the London? I mean, it's a really nice city, but it is not my favorite opening. So today, let's take a look at how to crush the London, at least the London system. Okay, so after bishop to g7, my game is going to be based on making this bishop a bad piece. And after e3, which is a standard move in the London, I played d6. I recommend putting your pawn on d6 in the London to sort of make that bishop bite on rock. Now, white is hoping that if we play a move like e5 later, the bishop will be able to target this pawn. But in my game, what I'm going to show you is if your opponent is not careful, you can get rid of the London bishop and invade the London. Wait, I think I'm getting too historical. Let's go back to chess. White played the move knight f3. I played knight f6, and already a bit of a mistake. Most London players, if they are up to their druthers, I'm not even sure what a druther is, will play the move h3 to give the bishop a little bit of an escape hatch. But my opponent forgot to do that and played the very strange bishop to g3. Now, it's perfectly fine in this position to castle, or maybe even play a move like c5 and try to open up my own bishop on the b2 pawn. But I like to frustrate those London players, and I went immediately after the bishop. Now, it is possible for white to keep the bishop by playing bishop h4, but I'm already putting my opponent in a little bit of unfamiliar territory. We have crossed the Thames, and we are now, I don't know, somewhere south of London. Over? Okay, back to chess. I would have actually played h6, followed by g5 to get that bishop off the board. For example, knight on b to d2, g5, bishop g3, and now we can take this bishop at our leisure, or as a Londoner would say, at our leisure. So I'm putting my opponent a little bit off balance with this move knight h5. Now my opponent played bishop d3, and I said, thank you very much, I have the bishop here. And not only is black at least equal, probably actually a little bit better, but you will have gotten your opponent into unfamiliar waters, crossing the English Channel. Boy, how many geography jokes do I have today? Now my opponent correctly captured toward the center. I played a normal developing move. And just to show you how I got my opponent off kilter, my opponent, by the way, was nearly 1900. My opponent played knight to g5, trying to take advantage of this half-open file and target the pawn. But remember, sometimes you can ignore the threat. Hey, is that a ChessKid video? Why, yes, it is. Let's put it up on the screen. Yeah, I ignored the threat and just played the move e5, discover attack on the knight, with a very simple idea. If the knight takes what seems like a free pawn, white's knight has walked into a pin. All I have to do now is put pp on the pp. The best way to do that, knight back to f8, and I'm going to win the knight or the rook. I don't care which one, I'm going to win the game. So let's go back. White could have actually played rook takes, but then I would have taken the knight, winning a piece, unless white thought that the piece was going to be won back. But if so, then my rook would come all the way down for a check. And after you block, look at this, my king becomes the hero. King to f8 wins that rook. We go back. After e5, and my opponent had to admit that the London was a mistake, and the knight to g5 sortie was also a mistake, and the knight went back. I played queen to e7, threatening to fork, and you can see I've taken over the game. By the way, I'm also threatening just to take, because that pawn would be pinned, and eventually I would win some amount of material. So, if white plays c3, thanks very much for the fork, and if white stops the fork, I don't know, moves the bishop or something, well, actually then the queen would defend. But if white does something like knight here, yeah, okay, that proves my point. After knight there, which stops the fork, then pawn takes pawn would win material because this pawn was pinned. Now, I do want to fast forward to much later in the game. We ended up getting in an opposite sides castle's position, and boom! Yes, this is the position that we've reached, and I played the move knight to d4, and you can see why having that dark squared bishop, my opponent not having it, is a big advantage. If my opponent ever takes, then I'm able to take back and fork the queen and the knight, and black would have a winning position. So after knight to d4, black is much better. I'm going to very quickly show you some of the remaining moves. I threw my pawns up the board at the white king. I even gave away my e-pawn for free because that helps the bishop's diagonal. And then after a few more moves, I ended up playing the very thematic a3. I want to weaken the dark squares because I have destroyed the London bishop. And it turns out, after b3, I was totally winning after takes, and there's no reasonable way to stop queen to b2. White had to push the c-pawn, but that opened up White's king. White was not able to survive. All right, well, that was a very quick lesson on destroying the London on the chessboard, okay? You can visit the city, go to Buckingham Palace. It's a beautiful place, but on the chessboard, take no prisoners when playing against the London.